corporate America is holding $2 trillion in cash. And the big question is, why are they not spending it? You talk to businessmen, and they will, to a person, tell you it's uncertainty that they worry about, uncertainty in the regulatory environment, tax environment, and they all say that the Obama administration has been suspicious or anti-business, and that's why they aren't spending.
Well, I think it's important to look at some aspects of the record. Corporate profits have risen by 60% in the last 2 years to record levels. That's as fast as they've risen in any 2-year period. People talk about uncertainty. One measure of uncertainty is the volatility in the stock market. That has fallen more than in half since President Obama took office. And if you look back through history, it's actually quite a remarkable pattern. Business was far more hostile to the New Deal in the 1930s that saved capitalism than they have been in the 1990s. After the doldrums of the 1950s, business was fiercely hostile to President Kennedy and the program that drove the economy and profitability to new heights in the 1960s. Some of the periods when business was most enthusiastic about the directions of policy in the 1980s were periods that, in retrospect, were marked by very slow productivity growth, relatively weak markets, and the huge accumulation of debt. So I think if one looks back, this is not an isolated instance in being a moment when the policies that took the country forward, that lifted the country out of recession, that ultimately worked out best for business, turned out in the short run to arouse concern and real anger in the business community. That's been the case at most of the moments when the country has moved forward. But if you look overall, the foundation for prosperity, growth, and profitability in the United States today is far stronger than it was 2 years ago. And that's not just my judgment. That's not just President Obama's judgment. That is the overwhelming judgment if you look at any market indicator. And I think that, or you look at any profit figure, and I think that should tell us something very fundamental about the policies that have been pursued.
But culturally, you've got to admit that there's something about President Obama and the business community. There seems to be a disconnect. I mean, you talk to businessmen, you really get the feeling that they think he doesn't get them. He doesn't appreciate them.
I think it's been a difficult time for business. I think if you look, and it's not just business, it's the media, it's the Congress, it's many different parts of the country where there has been a kind of disillusionment that widespread swaths of our citizenry feel. And President Obama is very direct and candid, and he has talked about that with business leaders. And sometimes I think people can confuse the messenger and the message. And I think there are some in the business community who believe that the anxiety that the public feels towards business, about financial practices, about failures to create jobs for ordinary Americans, about loyalties that go beyond the country in which they're based. I think some business people think that those anxieties are coming from Washington, and I think the reality is much more that Washington is responding to what is a palpable unease in the land, and I think that is a very real challenge for business.